Hi there, and welcome to this week's feedback session. So this has been week one of my new course, Develop Your Drawing. And this week we launched straight into watercolour painting. I introduced a few exercises just to give you an opportunity to play with watercolours and start to explore some of the really nice effects you can get. Really, I'm thinking more about here is using watercolour as a way to enhance and develop your drawings. So the exercises we looked at this week were colour mingling, which is where you drop colours into each other and allow the effects of diffusion to sort of create these nice mingling effects. And there's lots of variables, as you probably found out, the amount of water you use, the paper, how quickly you paint, these sorts of things. But you can get some really nice happy accidents painting that way. And then I talked about how to incorporate the mingling effect into designs for paintings using sort of simplified tonal patterns. And I gave you some examples about how to generate these sort of black and white images so you can reduce your reference material down to a much simpler form, which will make it easier to paint. I say the visual world is incredibly complex, so all painting involves some degree of simplification. And I found that with watercolours in particular, you need to develop that skill to sort of see the world more simply. And that can make it much easier to create your paintings. So I've had some great work handed in this week, and always nice to see student work. And I picked out some nice examples, and I thought I could just sort of show you what people have handed in. Okay, so here we are over on Photoshop. So Jen handed this in. So in mine, I used the motif of a cockerel. Here she's used a little robin. And again, we can see lots of different effects here going on. And this is exactly the sort of thing I meant about playing with the medium and seeing what happens. So we can see some nice ones here. Where the paints remain quite discreet though, that could be due to a number of reasons. It could be not painting quickly enough, or perhaps not using enough liquid. You really need them to, when they meet, they should be bleeding into each other, as we can see with some of these nice ones there. So that's just something just to sort of look at your, what's going on there, and just to be able to analyze and try and understand a little bit more, so you can control the accident, as it were, a bit more easily. Thanks for that, Jen. And then Lois sent this really nice page in. Again, excellent colours here and some really nice colour combinations. So I'd say a page like that, it's worth having that up, or at least to hand when you're doing your paintings. Doing these sorts of exercises can generate all sorts of ideas for colour schemes that you could then take into more sort of complex paintings. So we've got some really nice ones there, and the colours are really sort of singing off the page there. So that's a really nice collection. And then Margaret sent these in. Again, we can see some of these nice mingling effects happening. And I really like this as a page, actually. Again, the colours are quite harmonious. And she's put a little highlight in there and a little stalk. So I think that works really nicely. But again, a good feeling of just playing with the materials, Margaret. And that's one of the things I was trying to encourage this week. So well done for that. And then Phil sent these in. So some nice ones at the top here. But I thought I'd just show you down at the bottom. He's got some really nice examples where he's taken what I've suggested and he started to take it a bit further. And there he's using sort of wet in wet techniques. So that's a good example of, once you've explored a lot of the ideas, the possibilities, you can then sort of go a bit further, and wet in wet is quite a nice way. So what happens there is we start to lose the tight silhouette and the whole thing becomes blurred. So you can do that by simply wetting your surface a little bit and then trying the exercise again and just sort of see some of the effects you get that way. And that's really nice. You can also see in that one, you get this with some paints, you'll get this sort of granular effect when it diffuses. And artists will use that, exploit that to create sort of, the feelings of texture. So yeah, some really nice bits going on there, Phil. So thanks for those. Then Jen sent this, sent in a couple of landscapes. So yeah, that was after we did the minglings. I talked about how to incorporate them with a landscape design. So again, when you're looking for subjects, you're looking for things that can break down into nice light and dark shapes. So here we go. So there's a bit of mingling happening. Some of the paint's remaining a bit discreet. So that might either be a lack of water or again, perhaps not painting quickly enough. Where it really starts to bleed one into the other. These are the effects that I really like with this approach. Okay, now she's done this one, which I really like. In particular, I really like this effect where there would normally be a sort of silhouetted line around there, which is always very tempting to surround everything with a silhouette. But by leaving that blank, you see, it creates this great feeling of light hitting the form. And she's done the right sort of thing, which is, you know, you start to suggest the form by lines in the background. Okay, you could also have lines down at the top. Okay, so you're using the background to explain the three-dimensional form or to explain where the silhouette, but you're avoiding that hard outline, which will often flatten an image. Okay, so I thought that worked really nicely. And again, nice use of complementary colors there, yellow and purple. So great combination. So very nice page that, Jen. Thanks. Okay, and then we started to look at portraits. So Alison sent this one in, and I thought this was really nice. In particular, I love the way the mingling here. We've got purple and we've got this sort of warmer, I don't know if that's an orange or a green or something like that. But because it's all part of the darks, it just feels like a very subtle sort of undulation of colour. Very much like the effect you get in certain photography and sort of cinematic effects. So I particularly like that. It still reads as the silhouette, but the colour changes are really sort of harmonious and work nicely there. So I thought that was a really good one, Alison. And Melanie sent this one in, which I thought was, again, a great sort of choice of reference material. So there's a lot being suggested by the shapes, the way this line here comes over the face just suggests the cast shadow of the arm, really nice and effective. And she's managed to keep the darks all nice and sort of unified. And, you know, there is change within it, but it's nice and soft. We can't see discrete brush marks within there, okay? There is maybe a couple of these dark shapes look a bit discrete and separate there, but I think we can live with those. But yeah, I really like that, Melanie. Thanks for that. And this was Phil's. So Phil stuck to he's got the nice idea here of the black and white shape. The only thing with this, Phil, is I think maybe I would have liked to have seen you pull the blue into the silhouette. By keeping this discreet, several things happen here is your darks are becoming very light on this side of the head. And also where the blue meets the grey, you are effectively creating a sort of line like that, which, you know, I don't think that helps. You really want to just unify the darks when you use this approach. So you unify them by colour and trying to keep them as consistent in sort of tonal value as possible, okay? All the action is with the highlight. So by lightening this area here and this strong blue, you're pulling the eye away from where the action is. So that's why I would suggest keeping this all a bit quieter, and that will focus the eye on the highlight. But again, it's a very dramatic sort of image, so I think it, you know, it works well. I would, you know, the mingling, I'm surprised the blue didn't mingle into the grey more, so perhaps just play around with that one. Thanks for that. That's great stuff. And Stuart sent this one in. Again, works really well. Very strong, dramatic image, and the colour all sorts of adds to the atmosphere. So great work there, Stuart. It looks though the paint almost looks like it's behaving like acrylic here. So I can see lots of little marks there, and it's almost like the paint has been scraped on in a few places. Now that could just be the way the paper's behaving. It might just be, it could be that it's getting a little bit sticky on the brush. So remember, you're trying to get enough liquid. The other thing to watch is I can see quite a hard outline. So I know it's, it's difficult when you're doing this, but when you do the outline, you want to very quickly try to bring in the background and unify all that together. Um, Again, what we're trying to do is make a quiet dark so that it all sits back really as one discrete, as one thing, and we don't see sort of marks within it. That sort of pulls our attention to it, and then all our attention goes onto the highlight. But yeah, great effort though, very nice. Okay, and Teresa sent this one in. So excellent choice of the sort of black and white shape here. So the main thing I wanted to point out here though is I think what's happened is, I mean, I like the image, I think it works well, but I do think because there's such strong contrast between the blue and the pink, it's making the background quite busy and noisy, and therefore that's affecting the readability. So I just wanted to try and show you what it was like if I darkened that background slightly. So I'm going to push that background down a bit. So if I push it down like that, really darken it, okay, we can see now that the highlight starts to read, okay. It's still a little bit distracting with all the marks there, but hopefully you get the idea that really you want that background to be quite sort of solid. But this is about play, so don't worry about that too much. The main thing is I think you picked a great bit of reference material there, and I think the effect works well. But yeah, I would just perhaps you want to just make that nice and dark, that background, and I think that would you'd get a better effect, I think, Teresa. And then lastly, this one, and I thought this was a excellent sort of watercolor portrait. And again, the light shapes and the dark shapes are excellent, so they're doing a lot of the work for you. There's some really nice, I mean, how you've created the, I don't know if you've used masking fluid, but the beard area is working particularly well there. And then this background, so this really demonstrates some of the really nice effects we can get with this mingling. And it's all going on there with different sort of textures, and the colors are working. And then we've got these strong contrasting orange and blues in the face, but because of the nice light shapes and dark shapes, it's all working really well. So I thought that was a really excellent portrait, that Teresa. Anyway, so that's what I got this week. Some really nice work there, and hopefully again just give you some ideas. Maybe you could play around with it over the weekend. Go back to these ideas, and again take that attitude of just playing around, experimenting, and seeing what happens. Watercolors, they do, they take a while to get the feel for, but once you start to see just a few of these sort of accidental effects work in your favor, I find that gives a lot of encouragement and enthusiasm to pursue the medium further. Anyway, so I hope you found some of that useful. And next week we're going to be doing watercolors again, but we're going to be looking at using watercolor more in a purely sort of tonal fashion. And I'll be talking about how to create layers and how to create texture, build up sort of textures in watercolor. So hopefully you'll find some of that useful. Anyway, so look forward to seeing you on Monday, and I will see you again soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.